Hey, this is Laura live again, and I'm in my car again because there's a storm, and this is the best place for me to have the best reception. So today we're going to talk about how many hours per week does my student need to with autism? How many hours per week? We're there's a lot of talk about this, and you really can't find the information anymore on the internet because there's so much information. When my children were diagnosed, that was 17 years ago, there was one thing you could find on the internet. That was it. And it was the 1987 study done by UCLA, Dr. Lovaas, very famous study now, that showed two groups of children, one that had 40 hours a week of one-to-one ABA therapy, and the other group who I think just went to preschool or really didn't have hardly any therapy at all. And the group of the children who had the 40 hours a week of one-to-one therapy, 40% of them, 3 years later, were indistinguishable from their peers, which means they were just like any typical child. They mainstreamed. Untrained people could not notice a difference. That study has never been replicated, by the way. So it's been criticized by a lot of people because they thought that they sort of pre-selected their subjects at the beginning. There's lots of criticism of the study, but anyway, it's published, it's valid, and it is what has the Autism Speaks has used all over the country to force insurance to cover ABA. It's just that one study because it's the only group design study where you have an A and B and you have a control and all the kind of stuff like medical studies. Another study that was done more recently in the last 3 years or 4 years was out of Connecticut. I think it was University of Connecticut. And a researcher there noticed that some of the students that were through their program, after they, when they get to be first grade, second grade, they're indistinguishable from their peers. They mainstream and they don't need any more therapy. And she wanted to figure out what were the commonalities with those students. So she looked back at I think it was like over 100 students, 150 students, and she found that the common thread between the students who improved so much that they could go on to lead independent lives, they all had at least 25 hours of one-to-one therapy when they were little. There is no research, nothing anywhere that says that less than 25 hours a week is effective. There's nothing. When we have research that shows that you can teach kids certain skills using certain videos or using certain techniques, you can see certain skills, but overall, what produces an independent person who can live on their own and choose their own destiny? There's nothing showing that less than 25 hours a week is effective. And I don't know people who get even that. Lovaas said it was 40 hours a week of one-to-one. Very few people in the world get 25 hours a week of one-to-one therapy. And it may be that they're not fighting hard enough. They don't know their rights. What I find is that this information that I just told you right now is almost unknown among parents. They just don't know it. And the reason why they don't know it is because when you search autism therapies or anything, there's so much information out there that you never find. The most important fact is, how much does my kid need? You just can't find it. You have to have somebody tell you who's been in this so long that they've seen the research come, because there's just been so much research that's really kind of useless for our kids now. We have tons of research on genetic things that don't help our kids now. Tons of research on single subject studies that show 1 or 2 or 3 kids doing something that really doesn't help our kids. But as far as group design studies, there's only 3 that I know of. The study done by Portland State on Gemini, the study done by UCLA, and the study done by UConn. So what are you going to do? You don't have insurance. You can't afford 40 hours a week to pay it. That's like 12 grand a month. I mean, this is really expensive. What are you going to do? Well, this is what you're going to do. If you live in a place that offers free anything, preschool, whatever, take it. Even if it's only an hour a day, even if it's only 2 hours a week, whatever it is, take it, because you can Help the teachers by giving them a little bit of training so that that can be counted as part of your 25 hours. Where actually, because part of it, as we know now, because we know about the default network and the active network in the brain, part of that 40 hours or 24 hours, the efficiency of it, is keeping the children distracted from their inner world so that they're present more and more every day. If you can do that, you're halfway there. All right. The other 3/4 of that time in ABA is with input, flashcards, modeling. You can do that with Gemini in about 1/10 of the time. So really, if you're looking, you need 40 hours, you really only need 10 hours of generalization work. If you and the rest of it, the 40 hours, is keeping him distracted and giving him video modeling. So if he's watching his videos, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 20 minutes each time, that's tremendous modeling. You really don't need much more than that. If on top of that you are keeping him distracted, taking him to the pool, getting him to the park, keeping his brain active, and then you are generalizing the information. So whatever therapy you've got, whatever you've given you, what if they've given you an hour a week or 5 hours a week or whatever they've given you, make sure they're not modeling, they're not wasting it in modeling, that you can do that with the computer during lunch and breakfast. Don't do that. Make sure that they're not just playing with them either, because you can do that. Make sure that they are generalizing the videos. That's something that really, it takes some training, or I guess the more training you have, the better you are at it. And these people usually have a lot of training and specific training to do exactly what you want them to do that you don't have as a parent. So if you have if you're lucky enough to have these therapists, no matter what they are, if they're neurodevelopmentalists, if they're Floor Time, or if they're Sunrise, if they're ABA, if they're PRT, whatever they are, they're really well trained at generalizing. Make sure that you bring in a list of the flashcards, and you can print those out from, if you go on your Gemini account, you go in the child's My Sessions, click on flashcards, print them out, bring them with you every week. Say, this is what we're working on this week. You can even cut them up for the teachers. Cut them up and say, here, this is what we're working on. So they will know how to get the kid to generalize that information. Even in the Lovaas study, only about 10 hours a week was spent on generalization. The other 30 was all modeling. So if you take that modeling out and you get him or her distracted from his inner world every waking moment, you got your 40 hours or even more. You got it. So, something that what I love about one of my favorite things about Gemini is that it gives control to the parents again. You don't just feel like you're helpless. You actually can do something. And nothing is as efficient and effective at modeling as video modeling. And Gemini, which is discrete video modeling, has been shown in research, published research, to be 300 times more effective than standard video modeling. So you've got the cream of the crop when you're doing Gemini. So, there's hope, but there should be. Well, there we go. Okay, so fear is what kept me going when I was in despair, when I was desperate, when people were telling me Max is going to be institutionalized. Fear is what kept me going and kept me trying. It was a healthy, optimistic fear. And I think the reason why I was blessed with that correct emotion from the beginning is because what I read online gave it to me. Number one, I read the Lovaas study. Number two, I read Karen Sarusi's book. And so I had hope from the Lovaas study because 40% of those kids were indistinguishable. But it also showed me that even with 40 hours of one-to-one therapy, 60% were not. So I had to know, how do I get my kid in that 40%? Constantly thinking, constantly trying new things, trying everything. And if you are given the wrong information at the beginning of this journey, you're either told, I find the parents are coming out with this, and I never understood where they're getting these feelings until I started researching it myself, and I realized what's happening is that they're reading too much of the wrong thing. They're either being told, don't worry, he'll grow out of it, and so they don't do anything, and every time they get worried or fear, they go back to that, oh, no, I was told he'll grow out of it, it's okay, and they're giving themselves false security, so they're not working hard to find other things. Or they're told, there's nothing you can do about it, so don't try. So they go in complete desolation. Why would I try this Gemini thing? Why would I try anything? In fact, when I first launched with Gemini almost 3 years ago, a lot of people, especially in the UK, were commenting, what do you do for therapy? It's a lifelong condition. Why should we even try? This sort of negative, there's nothing you can do attitude was really, really strong, at least in my experience with the comments I was getting from the UK. So I don't know, and I talk to people when I lecture there, and they say that in schools they've been told there's nothing you can do for it. It's not treatable. And so they were in just complete despair. So those two extremes, and the truth is really will set you free. You got to get the truth out. It is treatable. There is hope. It's a lot of work, and you will never regret working for your child. Never regret it. Even if they never speak, they'll be able to type, they'll be able to communicate, and they won't be frustrated. There's lots of people who are absolutely phenomenal who can't talk, but they understand everything that's being said to them. They could read, and they're stunningly brilliant, and they write. And I've said before, you wouldn't have to talk to work at Gemini. Very few people in my organization talk. They hangouts with each other, even if they're sitting right next to each other, because they're coders, they're hanging out with each other. The editors, they don't talk to each other, they hangouts with each other too. There's lots of things you can do in life without having to talk, as long as you can communicate through writing. And so that's why we have the whole reading aspect of Gemini too. So just to repeat, less than 25 hours a week has never been shown to be effective in any research anywhere. No matter what your school says, no matter what your regional center says, no matter what anybody says, it's never been shown in published studies to be effective. Now, you may have, well, Mary's kid down the street, he just went to school, and look at, he's in 5th grade, he's got friends. Like, yeah, Mary's kid is a one-off. That's a great anecdote. But as researchers and as clinicians and as academics, we are forced to use science. I can give you lots of anecdotes, crazy anecdotes about lots of things. There's one guy who joined a circus who ate light bulbs his whole life, and he lived till he was 85 years old. So go ahead and eat light bulbs? No, that was just a weird guy. Okay, so you just can't take one person and create policy over one person. You need to give every child the best case. Now, there's insurance that's covering cancer drugs that have a 5% success rate of extending someone's life 6 months. Where ABA, or let's just say intense therapy, has a 20 to 40% success rate over your lifetime. So the thing is, though, you have to start it really young to get those results. At least that's all we have is in published research. And we're talking about starting it before 40 months. So where are we going back to? There was a study that was presented at IMFAR. I don't know if it's been published yet, but it's really exciting. It's a guy who did a meta-analysis or survey, and he said that 30% of the children who get therapy right when the moms think there's a problem. So we're talking about 12 months old, 18 months old. When moms go, something's not right here. We're not developing the way we should. And they get therapy from that moment, not waiting and getting a diagnosis and starting therapy 4 years later or a year later, but right when they think there's a problem, they get into therapy right that week. 30% of those kids go into preschool with no problems, going to kindergarten with no aids. They're just mainstreamed, 30%. And that, I've known that. Before the guy came with the study, I've known that. So that, again, is Gemini. If you have somebody anywhere, whose child you think, he's a little late in talking. He's got great eye contact. He's really affectionate. He's a little late in talking. Get him on Gemini right away. My son, my 7th son, I thought there was going to be no issues. Super great eye contact, really affectionate, super social. 18 months, still not talking. Said mama, couple things. Got him on Gemini. By the time he was 2, caught up to his peers. In fact, he was he had better vocabulary and better articulation than his peers. Just all we needed was that 6 months. So, and that's why we're going to be pushing a huge public service announcement for everybody, just the signs to look for. If your child is not talking at 18 months, start Gemini now. It's so cheap. You could probably do it for a year at that age and catch him up. I keep thinking about Liz Lane in Ireland because she's got 2 kids. Her daughter was 4 years old, like in the 10th percentile language. Her little guy was about 18 months old, not talking, and in the 1th percentile, just really low on no pretend play, no eye contact, nothing like that. She started him with Gemini. 2 years later, he went into preschool, mainstreamed, and he's now he scores way ahead of his peers in language. He's super social. She got it. She caught it. Now, there's something neurologically that Gemini is doing in the brain. We're going to find out because we're going to be doing some fMRI studies pretty soon. But we don't even, as I talked to one of the lead neurologists in the world who's doing the study, he said, we know that something's going on because look at the results. We just don't know what. What was not connected before that is connected. And that's what we'll be able to see, like before and after. It's going to be really fascinating. But there's no reason not to start. Start. If you have any autism in your family anywhere, I would start it no matter what. Just when they're 18 months old, this is what we do. It's just preventative. You get shots to prevent disease. Get this. It's a lot less painful than a shot. And it doesn't have any potential negative side effects. Those warnings on the shot labels can make you pretty nervous. No warning label with Gemini. You just get it done. All right. So you're welcome, Kristen. You're welcome, Kristen. This is it for Laura Live today. And catch you up on Wednesday. I'm hoping that my reception's getting a little bit better now. I'm actually had to move in my car to a place where I can get better reception. And don't forget to subscribe and to share. Bye-bye.